Hi, my name is Nando Reynolds, and I'm excited to be sharing this material with you about integrating breathwork with mindfulness. And so I'm going to start with just going over some of the basic principles that we make use of. And to start with, mindfulness is the ability to pay attention in the present moment to your five senses without judgment, with an attitude of compassion. So we want to use our mindfulness practice to tune into the here and now through our five senses, and we want to build that as a skill. So many of us, myself included, spend a lot of time doing, where we're problem solving and handling this issue and that issue, taking care of business, and I'm really grateful that I'm able to do that as well as I am. And there's another side of the coin, another side of life, which is being, which is just being present, which is about not accomplishing anything in particular, but more just being alive, paying attention to the present moment through our five senses. And if you think of that on a continuum where doing is over here and being is over here, well, I spend an awful lot of time over here in the doing end of things, and so I'm very good at that. And my mindfulness practice is about really surrendering into being and developing that as a skill, so that that's something that I can choose to either be 100% doing or 100% being or somewhere in between. So that's my target, is to develop that kind of fluidity and skill with both of these abilities. So through our mindfulness and breathwork practice, we're working on the skill of being present. And one of the first things to understand about that is that that when we really pay attention to the present moment through our five senses, through what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we smell, and what we feel in our bodies, if we really pay attention to that, it turns out that that's absolutely extraordinary. Our sensory experience is absolutely extraordinary. And if you take even a couple of moments and you get quiet inside and breathe and relax, you can pay attention to the physical sensations in your hand, say. And I don't know what your experience is in this moment, but for me, as I pay attention to the physical sensations in my hand, those physical sensations from the inside out, they don't really feel very much like a hand. They feel like a shimmering cloud of scintillating sensation. But usually I'm not paying attention to that. Usually I'm paying attention to, oh, well, I'm using my hands as tools and I'm in my doing orientation and like that. And so I'm using these physical sensations to label my experience. Right now there's a bird calling outside, which I know is a jay, and the bird call is being identified in a very doing-oriented way as a jay. I'm not just being with the sound. Okay, so I want to make those distinctions in my sensory perception: what I see, what I hear, what I taste, what I smell, and what I feel in my body, where there's a level that is raw sensation. And then on top of that is where I've identified and managed the sensation. And that's a really different thing. That's much more doing-oriented and less being-oriented. So, as we're paying attention to the present moment through our five senses, and we want to migrate towards being, a lot of that is about dropping the unconscious, automatic process of categorizing and naming and judging and all of that happens naturally. That's part of the doing. There's nothing wrong with it, but we want to recognize it, that is part of the doing. And so as we move more towards being, we're allowing ourselves to dissolve into the field of sensory perception. We're no longer having to judge, manage, name, categorize, and like that. Okay, so that's paying attention to the present moment through our five senses and recognizing that if we're really being there with that, it's a process of surrender and opening. Another piece with this is that when we breathe, the primary muscle in breathing is the diaphragm, and if we support the motion of the diaphragm with our skeleton and with the other skeletal muscles, if I support it with my posture and the other skeletal muscles, it's really, really helpful. Now, when I think about meditation and like that, I think about my friend over here, Buddha, who is stationary, clearly, right? And that's not my target. My target is not to become a stone statue or an iron statue. My target is actually to be more human and to surrender into the process of being a human being. And part of that process is breathing, and when you breathe, you move. So I have a lot of iconography of these stationary images of enlightened beings, and they're not breathing. My target is to be a breathing human being. And in order to be a breathing human being, I have to allow myself to move. In fact, we identify discursive thought, unbidden thought, and distraction and drifting away and all of those things that happen if you practice your meditation. You will, of course, notice those drifting away moments. And we want to identify those as actually a symptom of A, not allowing the body to move enough, and B, not allowing enough gas exchange in the breath process. If you increase the amount of gas exchange and you increase the amount of movement that you're allowing, that will help you come back into the present moment. And I think about this as like, okay, I'm trying to keep my attention on the present moment. That's a very doing-oriented idea, trying to keep my attention on the present moment. Instead, I want to become so interested in the unfolding experience that I'm having through my five senses, the unfolding subjective experience. I want to become so interested in that it naturally sucks me into the present moment. And a lot of my sense of self as a separate other in a dual kind of way, a lot of my sense of self, I let go of that because I'm not paying attention to that. I'm paying attention to what I'm receiving through my five senses. So, paying attention to the present moment through your five senses with that kind of fascination, recognizing that if your present moment is very boring, if you're watching paint dry, the likelihood is that your mind is going to drift away. But if you make your present moment experience alive and vibrant, it's much, much easier to step out of the doing part of your brain and into the experiencing being part of your brain and surrender in that way. And it's deeply nourishing for the nervous system. Okay, so we have those themes that we're going to come back to again and again and again. Making sure there's enough exchange of gas, making sure that your body is moving, making sure that you're paying attention to the present moment through your five senses, and that you're finding something in the present moment that draws your attention, that's actually fascinating. And just using your breath, using your movement, using your five senses to draw yourself into the present moment, and take a vacation from all of this doing. So that's a little introduction to some of the ideas that we're going to be working with, and in the next videos we're going to be doing more hands-on, body-on kind of practices